Information fueled,
opinion driven. This is Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
we talk news.
8:06, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome on your Tuesday, October 22nd. Hope you're doing well, along with Joan Jones, Johnny B, Dan Mandis here. The trial of Daniel Penny began yesterday. Now, remember, this is the guy who put a chokehold on that homeless person, guy by the name of Jordan Neely, on a crowded Manhattan subway car. Now, this Neely, he was a busker, and he was threatening an entire subway car full of people. Again, they're in New York, and Penny, maybe you remember this, you've seen the video. A former Marine puts this guy in a chokehold because, again, he was threatening the car full of people. And eventually Neely died. Now Penny is being charged with manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide. Now Penny himself talked about that day and what was going on through his mind.
As has been reported, Penny adds his actions were not race-related.
The three main threats that he repeated over and over was, I'm going to kill you, I'm prepared to go to jail for life, and I'm willing to die. I knew I had to act, and I acted in a way that would protect the other passengers, protect myself, and protect Mr. Neely. I used this hold to restrain him, and I did this by leaving my hand on top of his head to control his body. You can see in the video there's a clear rise and fall of his chest, indicating that he was still breathing. I didn't see a black man threatening passengers. I saw a man threatening passengers, a lot of whom were people of color.
Yeah, so now Penny is facing a couple of different charges. This cuts across political lines, racial lines as well. Penny is white, Neely was black. Penny was a Marine, and I think that there are Democrats who are not fans of the military, frankly, who are going after him to make a point. And then, of course, you have the likes of Al Sharpton.
A good Samaritan help those in trouble. They don't choke them out.
So, of course, Sharpton lives for these moments. And Jordan Neely, his family's lawyer, says that Penny, he's the one that started this whole thing.
Daniel Penny was not attacked. Daniel Penny was not hit. He wasn't fighting back. He's the one who began that fight. He came up from behind Jordan, put him in a chokehold, and didn't let go for 15 minutes.
Jonthan Fahey is joining us. And Jonthan, of course, you and I speak about politics and all things illegal immigration and so forth. But you, of course, are a well-known attorney. And so I want to get your opinion on the Daniel Penny trial, because I think that he's being railroaded. They began the jury selection yesterday. And so just from first blush, what do you think about this case?
Yeah, this case is purely politically motivated. You know, when you look at this case, you know, it's like one of the things that stands out is basically they knew exactly what happened right away. They interviewed Daniel Penny after the fact, and it wasn't until there were all of these protests and people like Al Sharpton and stuff that a week later, I think it was a week later, I may have the timing wrong, but it was 2 weeks.
It was 2 weeks later.
Yeah, so after all the protests, all of a sudden we charge a guy with something they knew the same facts 2 weeks before. And you look at things like homicide cases and things like that. Typically, you know, if you have the evidence on somebody, you charge them right away and they lock them up because they would look at somebody as a danger to the community. They need to get them off the street. So it is kind of funny that there is that lapse in time where we had all these protests and, you know, they were trying to make this another George Floyd type of, you know, situation. So, you know, this is purely politically motivated. And you look at, you know, Alvin Bragg, and we've talked about his other case, the Donald Trump case, but he's purely a political prosecutor. He's looked at this job from the beginning, from the time that he ran, as a way to advance a political agenda, not to keep the citizens of New York safe. And as you can see by his record, the citizens of New York have been less safe under his watch. So this case is I want to say unfortunate, but it's so much worse than that. This is Daniel Penny, that is, you know, trying to help other people. It's certainly unfortunate that somebody died, but he was looking, you know, trying to keep people safe. And you hear of all these crimes on the subway that are going on. And what's the message to everyone else in New York is like, oh, let the criminals do whatever they want. And, you know, I go to New York fairly often, and it's like you need like a special attendant to get a tube of toothpaste because shop owners can't rely on the prosecutor to prosecute any of the thieves. So they have to take take the law or take extra precautions in their own hands. It's just so awful for not only Daniel Penny, but really the citizens of New York that sees a prosecutor that's more concerned about putting this political agenda ahead of their public safety.
Well, it is interesting. I used to live in New York. I hated taking the subway, and it has gotten a lot worse. And it is interesting because you see people, the videos are all over the place online. You see people assaulting other people on the subway. They take videos of it. They're horrifying. And people are getting thrown in front of the subway as well. And so the people that are assaulting others, they rarely, if ever, face charges. Now here, it seems to me like Daniel Penny saved people, and he's facing 20 years in jail. Does this, do you think, come right down to this being a blue city that is soft on crime and harsh on those trying to stop it? It seems like from what you just said, yeah, that is what it is. This is, you're siding with the bad people and you're throwing the good guys in jail, or trying to.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of funny because you look at Jordan Neely's record, and I believe he has 42 prior arrests. So this is a guy that they've never felt, the need to prosecute or get off the street or anything else, and probably probably dismissed a ton of charges, gave him lenient sentences, whatever they typically do. And now this guy, Daniel Penny, that has no record at all, that served our country honorably, he's the guy that's on trial. But it's such a disgrace. And, citizens of New York, I would say they deserve better, but they voted for this guy, so it's really like you vote for a guy that's advancing this political agenda, and then you wonder why your city gets less safe. It's like, well, he kind of told you on the front end, and, but it is so, it's so awful because, you want to think you would help somebody in danger, and you want to think other people would help you if you're in danger. But now this city of New York will say, hey, if you try to help someone, we're going to prosecute you. And, that story, which is like, I think from like the early 1960s, the Kitty Genovese story, where it was the story of in New York, this woman was raped and murdered, and all of these people were listening to the screams, I think maybe watching it, and nobody helped her. That was always this thing that was always talked about in New York about how, no one steps in, people let these bad things happen, no one helps. But it's like, hey, if you step in to help, this DA wants to put you in jail, and let Al Sharpton make major decisions involving community safety. It's such a disgrace.
He's being charged with manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide. This is a jury trial. And so if you're the attorney, if you're the defense attorney, what kind of a juror are you looking for?
I think you're looking, somebody that's, pro, like typically as a prosecutor, you want the pro law enforcement, pro police type of things. But in this case, the defense wants that witness. They want the person, not witness, the jury. They want the person that, as a defense attorney, ironically, they want somebody that's either been involved in law enforcement or has family in law enforcement or supportive of law enforcement, law and order, former military, people like that. So I think it's going to be a totally, flipping the script where you typically, on the other side, the prosecutor are going to want the activist-y type of people. And so it's totally different than you would normally expect. But I think, we're looking at what is it, Bernard Goetz 2.0 in a lot of ways, where New Yorkers, I think, are seeing this on a daily basis in every store they're going into and everything else. There's a sense of they're less safe than they used to be. So I think a lot of people, if you just get the average New Yorker, are sick and tired of the crime and sick and tired of a prosecutor that doesn't prosecute the crime. Mm-hmm. So I think they will have a tough time, not only on the merits of the case, which are not very good for the prosecutor to begin with, but also the other factors that are at play, which I think are always at play, are going to cut against the prosecution as well.
Let me ask you this. Part of the problem I think that Penny's lawyers, they're going to have to defend is that he refused, this from the New York Times, that Penny, of course, he went out that day. He was not planning to kill someone. But they also say that Penny refused to release Neely, they say, long after he had gone limp. At least, again, according to the New York Times and others. Is the issue how long he had Neely in that chokehold? And I'm going to throw in my own opinion real quick. Nobody knows if Neely has a gun or a knife or anything like that. So you don't know what he's carrying. But is that really the biggest issue that Penny's lawyers are going to have to answer?
Yeah, I think that is really the core issue here. And the prosecutors, I think, are going to concede that we're not saying what he initially did was wrong, but he held this too long. And I think that is what his defense attorneys do have to confront. But I think they'll confront it in a way which is basically what you just said. How do you know where that precise moment happens where somebody is no longer a danger to yourself and others? It's not something that is like, oh, at 3 minutes and 15 seconds, that's when you stop. It's like, you're right. You don't know that they said he went limp, but then again, is he temporarily unconscious, or did he just stop fighting for a temporary amount of time? Because this is a highly intense situation. So this idea that Daniel Penny should have, basically, he should be able to do a full medical exam on this guy while he's trying to restrain him, I think is a very, very high burden to place on him or anyone else. But I think you're exactly right. That's where it breaks down. They're going to say, hey, the government will say, we're not saying he shouldn't have done something at the beginning. That's an open question, but he should have stopped at this point. And the defense is going to say exactly what you said, because if he went limp or just pretended not to fight and Daniel Penny let go and he pulls the gun out, pulls the knife out, pulls whatever, and hurts him or hurts somebody else, then it would be like, oh, Daniel Penny should have held him longer. So it's like you can't win. It's unbelievable to me. And I love this little trick the media always does is like, well, I think they say he's unarmed. They always say that. It's like, well, you don't know someone's unarmed, until later. So
that's
it's
exactly
an irrelevant fact that they always stick in there to try to slant the story, usually against police officers, which of course, don't know either when in those situations.
You know what I don't get? Like, I've seen this in a couple of different places. Some folks say that Penny needs to go to prison, and they say that Penny acted out of fear and failed to see Jordan Neely's humanity. That's what they're saying, that the Penny didn't see Jordan Neely's humanity. Now, what I don't understand is, what does that even mean? I've got to, just from the world of reality and not where the Democrats live, right, in their heads. But I got a crazy guy screaming at passengers, trapped in a subway car, saying that he's going to kill them. Clearly crazy. And Penny put the guy down. It seems to me Neely wasn't recognizing the humanity of the people trapped in that subway car, especially considering what was going on inside that car. I don't understand what this whole, I don't know, it sounds like some college philosophical BS thing you'd hear in a class somewhere, but, failing to see Jordan Neely's humanity. I mean, do you know what that even means? I don't. Maybe I should, but whatever.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think it's just utter nonsense that people spill out when they want to, seem sophisticated when talking about these things. But it's like, you're right. Jordan Neely didn't see anyone's humanity, and he certainly, being arrested 42 times, wasn't recognizing anyone's humanity at any point. And when you're arrested 42 times, that means you've done more than 42 things because you're not getting arrested every time you do something. So it's just, this is somebody that put everyone else at danger. It's unfortunate that he's dead, and it's not like a good thing that he's dead, but it's like this idea that, okay, I got to save everyone, but I need to recognize that your humanity at the same time. Like, what does that mean? And maybe the person that recognizes somebody's humanity, they end up dead because, if they're afraid to take action because they're thinking things, and if you're a police officer or anyone else, and also this will give pause to any of them, but it's like, that moment that you're sitting there appreciating their humanity is when you're getting stabbed or shot. So it's utterly absurd, but you're right. It's like somebody at some, college talking about this, trying to justify their existence in life. But it's such an absurdity.
All right. So we've got about 2 minutes. Give me your thoughts, because we also talked about politics, of course. So give me your thoughts on Kamala Harris. She had this town hall yesterday. Turned out the whole thing was staged. No real questions from the audience was asked. Of course, we know the polls are now trending very much towards Donald Trump. What are your thoughts on the stage of the race?
It looks good for Trump, and I always look at the betting markets. Like, I'm not betting, but I certainly see people are putting their money, and they have really surged big time in his way. I think he's like 64% in that Polymarket, betting site. So I think everything seems to be going his way, although it's still close. And the Democrats, they are better, I think, at the ground game and that type of thing. So, and I wouldn't put too much stock in the fact polls were wrong before in one way. That means they'll be wrong in that same way, and therefore Donald Trump's definitely winning. But if you look at Trump and you look at Harris, he looks like he thinks he's winning. She looks like she thinks she's losing. If you just watch their body language, the way they're doing stuff, she looks angrier. And you look at these campaigns, the person that seems like the happier candidate usually wins, right? Hillary Clinton was just very, very exuded negativity. And then, and Biden did a better job in 2020, putting himself as sort of this middle of the road guy. He didn't govern that way. But you look at this, Trump is on his game as much as he's been in a very, very long time, like consistently good. They try, and now they're just trying to nitpick something from a 90-minute speech to say, he said this about Arnold Palmer. And it's like that means the media thinks he's winning too. He doesn't really work at McDonald's. It's like, no kidding. He wasn't saying he has a job there. It's just so, but it's laughable how bad the media, like that, the Jake Tapper stuff recently. It's like, you're just falling apart at this point.
Well, let me real quick, because I keep saying this, and I don't understand why this doesn't happen. Kamala Harris swears that she worked at McDonald's. Trump is saying that she didn't. You've got McDonald's basically saying we have no record of Kamala Harris working here, but we don't have other records, they say, apparently. Why can't she just get the IRS if she doesn't have them? Why can't she just get the IRS to turn over her tax return for that year and her W-2s?
Yeah, exactly. Or just say, I worked at the McDonald's on this street, and my manager was Bob, and I worked with this other person. Like, come on. Like, anyone, she could produce that. But if she actually worked there, she seems to be pretending like she didn't at this point. So it doesn't make any sense, but it seems like this gratuitous thing that she threw out there at some point to make her seem like she's had like sort of a tough upbringing, even though we all know it's probably one of the most privileged upbringings and careers that anyone has ever had. I mean, my gosh, no one's asked her the plagiarism question. I know we got to go, but my gosh, no one has asked her that question.